Hello and welcome. This is the Tell Not Show. I'm Kirsha Fox, author of Son of Deception and the White Leaf Child. I'm a homeschooling mom to four, reader, and gamer. And I'm really excited to introduce the author tonight is Candace MacPhie. Born in Montreal, Candace spent years backpacking and working around the world before writing the Back in a Year series. Candace, can you tell me a little bit about your writing journey? What got you started?
Absolutely. I got started because I was doing the wrong thing, if that makes sense. I spent a lot of time working in the corporate world, 20 years, and I really liked it. I enjoyed it, but life was going by so fast. I have three kids, and everything was just scooting by. And I left, chose to leave my job and spend some time at home with the kids, and started to learn the journey to write. It was a journey, absolutely. But that's kind of where I got started. I had the time and the I to devote to learn how to do it. I had always dabbled, always wanted to do it, always wanted to do it, but I needed the time to be able to try it and not do so well and learn and try it, and that takes time that I didn't have until a few years ago when I quit and started to do this in my spare time.
Yes, I completely understand. You go through this sort of phase where you're like, okay, well, this isn't like I need to work on this, and then you're like, this is amazing, this is the best, and then you send it to a friend or an editor, and you're like, oh my gosh, like there's still so much to learn. I thought I understood how commas worked.
Yes, exactly. Or I thought that was an actual story when it wasn't a story. Or I thought that made sense and it didn't make sense. So
Mhm.
just taking the time to be able to learn how to do it, and that's it, and it's not something you can just sit down and do in one go. You have to take the time, go back, reflect, think about it, take a break, come back, and and then find a partner as well who you can work with who can help you. So yeah,
Oh yes, yes. You need like your support team for sure.
absolutely.
Someone you
Absolutely.
bounce ideas off of, someone to read what you write, maybe read what they're writing. Like I feel like being an author can be kind of like an isolating kind of job, but like you really do need that network to support you.
It is very lonely, and I think that was a big change for me when I went from having teams of folks to say, "Oh, can we go into a room and work this out?" to sitting there by yourself and just going, "Oh my God, I have to figure this out." And it's hard and it's humbling, and so much time you spend on something, and you might just end up backspacing and starting again. And yeah, keeping yourself motivated as well is another sort of trial, if you will, to kind of keep yourself going, keep yourself motivated, and say, okay, come on, keep going. This is good. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. In some ways, it's a little bit scary being like the sole person in charge of your stories, because
hmm.
like I don't know about you, but I have the urge to like ask someone, like, is it okay to do this? And like, there's no one to ask. You are the authority. Like, you're the only one who can answer if it's
Yes.
like if this is what should be done or not.
Yeah. Should I take that scene out? Should I amp that scene up? Should I make this twist happen? And you're like, but you have to trust yourself, right? And I
Mhm,
think that was the thing where when I first started, I didn't trust myself, or I didn't trust that I was doing the right thing. And I think you just have to try and just have to see, and that iterative loop of getting the feedback
mhm.
and then coming back to it and going, okay, yeah, okay, I can do this. I need advice, absolutely, and but I can be in charge of this.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, you really are taking a huge part of yourself and putting it on the page and then giving it to people to read, and that's terrifying.
It's absolutely terrifying. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what genres do you write, and why did you pick those genres?
Well, to make it more terrifying, I'm writing memoirs, which makes it
Mhm,
more personal than it was before. And I took a trip. My mom died when I was 22, and I kind of muddled through life after that for a while, and didn't do very well. muddling through, to be honest. And I decided to take this trip and to pack my backpack. I sold my car, just gave up my whole life and just left. And a lot of things happened on that trip, and I learned a lot about myself, but also the experiences I had were probably not entirely unique. If you've backpacked or you've traveled, you probably had a similar experience. But if you string them all together, because it was such a long trip, because I traveled around the world, it's kind of fun. It's neat to
Mhm.
read. It's takes place in the 90s when we didn't have internet at our fingertips, and a phone call, like finding a phone booth was like, yes, I found a phone booth. I can call, connect with home. There's the
You
occasional
carry the phone
email.
cards with you.
You carried the phone cards to call, and yeah, and you had everyone wrote their addresses down in my phone book, and that I physically had in my backpack. So, and everything was in a travel book, right? It was all in a book you brought with you, a heavy book that you carried around. And it was just such a different time. And like I said, so many things happened, and it was just such a personal journey. It's funny, it's light, it's sad, it's cringy. I think a lot of time had to happen between the trip and my life now for me to be able to properly look back and be true to the story. So different, such a different person I was then to now. So it's nice because it's almost like writing about a character rather than my own self, because my own self is so different than the person in the book. Um, but yeah, I think it makes it part of the fun, just the fact that I was completely naive and just completely crazy and willing to try just about anything, and just, was up for just about any kind of adventure. And it's all in there in the books. And you can just sit back and read and just take a trip while you're sitting on the beach, and it's pretty fun.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I have not written a memoir, but I am an avid journaler. Journal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that I appreciate about getting older is being able to look back at those most troubled years and see how much of it really wasn't my fault. And you just want to hold that young version of you and be like, you are being way too hard on yourself. And you can suddenly see all the ways this young person was set up.
Hmm.
Probably giving a
Self,
little too
self,
much away, but I feel like
no, but it's true. You self-sabotage and you're so
yes.
hard on yourself. And even the way your parents used to speak to you versus the way I speak to my kids now. And I always make this avid thing that, I'm not going to screw up my kids the way my parents screwed me up. I'll just do it my way. So they'll have their stories. I'm sure they have lots of things,
Mhm.
but I try to really cut into those things that weren't there, in terms of empowering my daughters to be who they want to be, and just to be strong and to be self-sufficient and to be confident in themselves, and that's not something that was there when I was that age. You just weren't.
Oh,
You just
no,
kind of
no.
styled it out, and it wasn't pretty.
Yes. I have 4 myself. I know exactly what you're talking about. Just like the other night, I was explaining to them what gentle parenting is. And I'm like, that's all you've ever known. We did not have gentle parenting in the 90s. Like
Yeah.
it was a rough time.
No, it wasn't. And it was completely different. And
Mhm.
my life, similar in terms of the upbringing, but trying to have the same values, but like core values, but the way you execute on them and the way you encourage your kids is completely different, rather than, you know, the hard love. But still, you have to be hard. You can't just be a pushover, because then it's not going to end well
Yeah,
either.
it's like
But
a careful balance, right? Between like
mhm.
too permissive but too authoritarian. You're trying for that sweet middle, and it's just like
Yeah, yeah,
Super.
yeah. Yeah. So that's really, for me, was these books, this whole series. It's 5 books. And my master plan was that it was one book. So I started to write it, and the words just exploded on me, and I went, oh my word. And I just thought, oh, this is not going to end well for me. And I just kept dividing it by area of the world, if you will. And then also each book has its own story arc. So each book can be read individually, but it is one continuous journey. And each book covers an area of the world and an area of kind of what the challenges were at the time in terms of traveling through as a woman, and what the experiences were. But it's funny, like it's just, a lot of it's and that gentle balance between not being a tour guide, like it's not a tour book, but you have to know where you are. So there is descriptions about where you are, but I try to dump you in quick and then just get on with what we're trying to get through in terms of the scene, or what the scene's trying to show you, or what it wants you to experience. So yeah, it took a little bit of time to learn how to get that balance of the story, the thing about the place, and then to make sure that all these scenes of all these individual things, crazy things that happen, are one cohesive story in the end.
Mhm.
So yeah,
That's impressive.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you tell me a little bit about your writing process, maybe particularly with your latest book? Like, how do you go? Do you draft first? Do you plot? Do you just sit down and go?
Yeah. So my writing journey in terms of that was, I really went to my journals, as you can understand, from a
Mhm.
journaler to a journaler perspective, and just kind of transposed those journals, but took a bit out, enhanced a bit, and then as I was transposing the journals, that's where it first grew. And then when I actually had to take words that were just journal words into a story, that's where the words kind of got a little more involved, and then they grew. And then I got to a point where I had reached the end of my competency in terms of my ability to make the story any better than it was at that exact moment. So I searched out and found an editor who could help me bring it to the next level, because it was there, but it was as good as I could do at the time, but not as good as I wanted it to be, and as good as these stories deserve to be. So I interviewed lots of folks. It was kind of like any other job interview. You have to find the right person, right? You can't
Oh,
let someone
absolutely.
into that corral of life if you're not completely trusting them, because they're so important to the outcome of your stories. And it took a long time to find someone who understood that my goal was to have someone take the trip. So I couldn't cut stuff out. It wasn't a series of vignettes and chapters. It was a story where people got to experience everything from the crappy train ride to walking in the rain to taking camels to the pyramids. Like you get to experience all of that. But in order to do that, that's where the words came in. And so once I found that partner who was able to help me learn how to write, because I was very good at PowerPoints, but not good at story. So once I found that partner who was willing to help me learn the craft and the show don't tell, the connections, just the tips and tricks to keep the reader engaged and all of that, once I found that person, then I kept going back and reapplying that, going back to them, reapplying that. So I just kept rewriting all of the books, and they kind of they blew out to 5. So I rewrote number 1, and then I got the feedback, applied that to book 2, got the feedback, applied that to book 3, got the feedback, went back to book 1, rewrote that with all the feedback. And finally, then she said, okay, you're there. And then I was like, okay. And then it was just the editing. And words for me became very important. And I probably went too far, but I wanted certain characters to have certain words. So those words were only available to those characters. So, like one person, for example, in book 1 is cozy, and he was only cozy because that described him and differentiated him. So I didn't use that word anywhere else. I went through and searched for all the cozies and dumped all the cozies that weren't there. And so it was very important to me that there wasn't a confusion. It was as crisp as it could be. I cut out words. I spent hours and hours. I would listen to it, and then I would start the listening, and then take words out, fix things. If when you listen to it, you can hear it's a bit clunky. So, okay, those words aren't in the right order or something. And then I would print it off, and then I would do it printed off, and then I would go back and read it on screen, and I would go through it all again. So for me, I do not I appreciate people who can sort of whip up a story, which is amazing. But where to me is the editing process where someone goes through and really takes that care and really makes sure that you're not hearing the same word over and over again, or you're not shocked to stop because it's the scene is so different than any other one in the book, and you're just like it stops your flow, it takes you out of the story, and you're just like, wow, okay, well, you lose interest, you get disengaged. So I did everything I possibly could to get the reader to have that smooth, concise journey. So that was a goal
Yes,
too. Yeah.
yes. I
Yeah.
really admire that you took the time to make your books like the best they could possibly be, and you didn't cut corners, and you did all the things that you are supposed to do. Absolutely. You're supposed to read it out loud. You're supposed to read it on paper. You're supposed to change the font and make it a little bit different, or and check your crutch words. Oh my goodness. You know,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
in editing other people's work, I'm like, so you've used smile 50 times in 20 pages. Maybe
Yeah.
find some
Yeah.
different words to describe
Yeah.
pieces. Yeah. And I do this.
And
That's just part of the process.
you do. And I think book two, the latest book, Life Strikes Back, it was we were in foreign countries where nobody spoke anything we did. So it was very it took a while to kind of get the reactions because it would constantly be like I nod and then I smile and then I put up two fingers, or trying to describe that over and over again in a unique way. Yeah, I took the time to do that. I was specific to go through to make sure that you didn't get bored with the same thing over and over again.
Because
Yeah.
that's real life. Real life can be very boring. It can be very repetitious. Like when you have a thing that works, a system that works, you just do that over and over again.
Hmm.
But when
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
reading, you don't want to bore your reader. So
Yeah.
yes, exactly. I that's a tricky balance to strike. Of
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. For you, what is the most important part of writing?
I would say going back to what I said before with the editing, because I think I think people can sit down at a computer and write out something. Like you could spin a tale. Like absolutely. I think most folks could probably, with a bit of coffee, could get there and sort of spin out a tale. But in order to spin out a tale that people are going to want to read and people are going to like not want to put down and really just after they've read it, then you need to spend the time editing and the time reviewing and the time questioning if this is the right thing, if that's the right color, is that okay, what color is that really, Google search, come back, change that, you know, constantly questioning and going through and taking a step back and editing. So to me, editing.
Yes, you want to make sure that you are offering your readers a finished, polished, beautiful product, you know, not
Yes.
slap it together and here you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It shows, and
It does
I
show.
just, I didn't, I that to me is most for me. It is the most important part. Yeah.
Good answer. Yes. Do you have a favorite author and what is something that they do very well?
Oh, okay. So recently in my book club, we read The Women by Kristen Hanna. Have you read that?
I have not. I think the last book I read by her was The Nightingale.
Good, which is good. This one
Mhm,
is almost better. And I love her pacing. I
mhm,
love the fact that she incorporates facts of the time with the characters' experiences.
mhm.
You get very invested very quickly in the characters and their successes and their trials and tribulations. It's not always an easy flow, and she tackles hard topics too. So I enjoy that too. I admire her ability to spin a story around a time that was this women takes place during Vietnam and during an era that, not easy to write about, right? And easy to criticize, but she did it like a champ. So pacing, character development, intertwining history, that to me is always very impressive.
Yes, I absolutely love historical fiction for that aspect. It really brings like history to life for you in a way that you can grasp a whole lot better. a lot better than I think that they teach it in schools, where they're just sort of giving you the highlights and the years and the important big people, but you don't really get that experience of what's happening to the everyday people. What is it like to live there? What is it like to be there? Like the immersive experience you get in a book. Um,
Absolutely.
I think that most of the history I know comes from like reading historical fiction or even memoirs of
Yeah.
people who were there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Um, how do you make time for writing? You mentioned you have 3 kids.
Yeah, I'm in the sweet spot. I remember when my kids were little and I was working full time and I'd be like just feeling so bad. I live in Canada. It's quite cold in the winter times and my kids would be walking to school in -30 and I'd look out the window and feel the parent guilt. And then when I came home and there was a few years where they were just kind of, still needed me, but now sweet spot. They all go to school all day. They can get themselves a sandwich, you
Mhm.
know. So I've got the time, and the only thing I do is take time for dinner so we can connect because got to do that, right? Um, but yeah, I make time by getting up every day. I set goals. I'm very nerdy about goals, like whoa, nerdy about goals. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to get to this scene today, or I'm going to get through this editing, or I'm going to get to this point, or I'm going to, I have it all mapped out in terms of my strategy and approach of writing. And I have deadlines for myself and say, okay, this is when this has to be due. And this, so I just make it, whether I'm doing it in the evenings or I do it during the day. I fit it in chunks. I find it's easier for me to do in 3 to 4 hour segments because I just get sucked in like it's just like it sucks you into the pages like those
Mhm.
those 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 comics or those ones where the readers all get sucked into that's what happens
Yes.
when I write. I just get sucked all in and then I
Mhm.
have to remember to, whoa, I have to,
Mhm.
go
You're in
walk or
the
something.
zone. You're in that world. You're in, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
So chunks and segments and just make sure that
Mhm.
everyone knows ahead of time. And then I try to book all my appointments and stuff in one day so I can just knock it out and make that not a writing day. So
Yes.
yeah,
So
yeah,
sounds like you make time for writing by making sure you get your butt in the seat and you're writing, and you set yourself up for success by telling people, like you're setting up your life to make this a priority. That's
yeah.
wonderful.
It's a lot easier now that I've published a book. When I first was trying to learn to do this and was first sitting in here like Jack from The Shining, just typing away every day, my husband would sort of stroll in and he would peek over my shoulder. I'm like, don't touch my screen. I'm like,
Not
don't
ready
look at
yet.
this. Don't look at these
Don't
words.
touch
They're
me.
not perfect. Yes. So I would get very cross, and nobody understood. Like they're like, why is this taking so long? And what is going on? But by the time I spun up the book, then people would go, oh, okay, get it now. And I would say, and I even invite people in sometimes to like my brother comes over. He's quite good at words too, and I'll say, okay, I'm gonna play a scene. So my computer reads it out for him, and he'll go, hold on, I don't like that word. And we'll sit there and play with a couple paragraphs or something. And we'll do it for 45 minutes. And he'll go, okay, I get it. Like why this takes you so long. Because
Yes.
you can sit there and,
You can take an hour just reworking the same paragraph again and again and again, moving the lines around, changing the words, adding more description. Like it can be a little bit demoralizing because a lot of authors like to go off of your word count. They're like, oh, how many words did you write today? And you're like,
no.
25.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for me, it's not about
Yeah.
words. It's about overall progress and to say, okay, I usually try to get 4 pages done or whatever.
Mhm.
But if I don't, I'll get there. And it's funny, my husband always liked to tell me a story about how he'd heard this time where David Bowie would write songs and he would cut up it's very dating ourselves now. He'd cut up the lyrics and then sort of repin them back together in a different order. And I I thought I always thought that was so strange, and I thought, wow, okay. And I'd go and listen to a song, and go, okay, which one? Where was this line originally? But I do that a lot. If something's not working, I'm like, okay, it's in the wrong order, or sentences need to be, or I waited too long to talk about this, or it needs to go earlier, it needs to go later. So it
Mhm.
really does make you think that maybe a part of it needs to come out or something like that. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I often think of David Bowie when I'm editing as well.
Mhm. I've done that too. I remember teenage me like writing poetry and cutting out the phrases and the words and rearranging them, and like it
Yeah.
worked because you knew the words you wanted to use, but not the order yet.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's
Yes.
so
Well, you and David are right there together.
it's been a while. Mostly I just scribble wildly in notebooks now and draw like arrows. Okay, this one, then this one, this one, and then this scene. And even then with the final thing, I'm still moving chapters around of like, okay, this needs to happen faster. Like, okay, I need a chapter, it's just part of the process. It's
It
messy.
is.
It is
It
not a
is. It's
cookie process.
messy.
It's
No,
messy.
it's not. It's not. It's not.
Right. So what is your favorite part of writing?
I think my favorite part of writing is when I finally get that paragraph or finally get that scene that's been bugging me, or,
Mm-hmm.
and then you finally get it, and it could be a sentence, it could be the right word, it could be like a whole scene. But when you just know, like you just get the chills on your arms,
Yes.
you're like, hey,
You're like,
that is
nice.
that's it. Like I'm like, I did
Hmm.
that. Oh yeah. And I get pretty proud of myself. So I have to take my wins where I can, and that's that. Yeah.
I love how you celebrate the little wins. Like yeah, that's it keeps you going. Those small
Absolutely.
victories. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have to keep going, or else I sort of circle it, spiral, death spiral. It's not good. It's not pretty. So you have to keep going. Absolutely.
Yes. But I really love when you read your own work and you're like, dang, this is pretty good. Like
Yeah,
I'm
you
good
have
in
to
this.
say that. I'm not putting out crap. That was my other
Yeah.
goal. I wanted people to take the journey, and my absolute worst nightmare was to have my name on a piece of crap. I'm like, I'm not, this is going to be good or it's not going to happen. So
Mm,
I need it to be something people go, okay, that was a good book. I spent my time well. I didn't want people wasting their time reading
mhm.
reading something I wrote. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Do you have any particular influences when it comes to your writing?
Influences are smells. I was sitting in the yard the other day, and the lilacs were a bit north, so things popped out late, and they were just coming. Like I could smell it on the breeze, and I'd be like, call my daughter. Okay, quick, let's talk about this. And she goes, what is? Let's describe the smell. And she's like, no. And I said, no, no, no. It's like a rich dark honey. How does that? And she goes, yeah, all right. That's what it smells like. And I said, okay, good. So I just like everywhere from, if I see a beautiful color, if someone's talking and they say a good word, I quietly text it to myself so I don't forget, and everything. And then I have a book where I have all my favorite words, and if I haven't got them in, I'll save them for the really scenes where they really need to happen, an impactful scene or something. But if something, if someone uses a word when we're having a conversation and immediately I get a visual of it and I can place myself there, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I got to use that one. And
Mhm.
so from life, from reading other people's work and the way I feel when I read their work, and just thought, and I reread it and go, okay, what was it about that scene that caused me to have such a like, what was it? So I try to learn from others as well in terms of how they dragged emotion out of me too. So those are a few of my inspirations.
You're doing life and taking notes. Yeah.
Yes, I sure am. I have to take the notes because I will forget otherwise, and then I'll be really angry that I forgot. So
Oh
I
yeah.
do text myself the notes. Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to like reach to the shower and like write something on my phone class, and because you're so inspired, and you know that if you wait till the end of the shower, it's gone. It's
No, no. And I've been driving and I'll say to my kids, okay, get your phone and send me a text and I will like one sentence even because I was trying to work the sentence out all day and it finally lands. So they're like, oh, okay, mom, what is it? And I said, exact words. And so yeah, they know now. They're all well trained. So
great. How do you deal with writer's block when you get it? Is that an issue for you at all?
not now. I think more writer's frustration because the story is there, like I have it. It's just it's not good. So I'm having to. It's just so when I first started, it was a journal, so it's an itinerary, right? It's an account of a trip. So if I get writer's block or writer's frustration, I puzzle. This is very lame. I like to puzzle. I have puzzles on the table. I have one of those nerdy puzzle things that you can kind of pack up your puzzle and put it away so you can take it off the table. And I go for walks if it's not freezing. And I'm a very good pacer as well. And I will make food. I love to make cakes. I'm like an avid cake maker. So I will just think about the ingredients we have in the fridge and just make up whatever cake I have. And my latest was not a good one. It was an orange date cake that basically got a 5 out of 10, but they still ate it. So that's okay. I don't.
That's a win.
It was nice and moist, but just people got thrown off by the orange day combo. I thought it was a good, anyways. So you don't always win, but so those are my sort of moments where I have to do something completely different. So there's things.
Yes. I have heard from several people that like movement, something that occupies your hands, or like something busy that you can do that sort of frees up your mind to drift and think. And that way you're not just sitting there angsting over a blank page. Yes.
No.
And sometimes you have to consume, like you have to refill your creative well before you can pour more out. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I can see where all of those things, those other creative endeavors are doing that. Yeah. All right. What would you say has been your most significant writing victory so far?
I think the day I got the feedback from the editor when I had gone to her so many times and I was getting feedback on how to write. And then when the day I got the feedback on the story was my significant, she's like, you're there, you know how to write. This is my feedback on how to make your story better. So once I evolved to getting feedback on improving the story, then I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like I'm not done my learning competency whatsoever. I just felt that I was able to, I had the toolkit to be able to put together a story now.
That's a really wonderful victory.
It was.
Okay. And then have you been given any writing advice that just like does not work for you? Like you wouldn't pass on this advice at all?
Ooh, writing advice. I think it was when probably the first couple of editors I went to who looked, and I sent them my story, when you're first starting and you're so excited and you're like, here's my story. And they just went,
chapter, what do you think? Yeah.
And they tried to blow it up and they tried to tell me it was all wrong. And I just went, in my heart, I don't know, I can't, I know I need help learning how to tell the story the best way I can, but this story is good and I'm not listening to you in terms of blowing it up. So having confidence in your vision is what I would say. Don't let anyone blow that up. If someone wants to give you some tips on how to make the story better, you can take that or not take that, or however you want to apply that. But if someone's trying to blow up your vision, don't let them do that.
That's really great. That's really important, I think, for people to know, because I feel like you have these ideas and too many people think that they have to write to market, or they have to write certain kinds of stories because those are the only kinds that sell, or like they so many stories aren't told because somebody else said, no, that's no good. Don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, got to be true to that voice inside that story that you need to tell, that only you can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, well, can you tell our listeners where they can find more about you and your books online?
Absolutely. I have a website, and if you see my name on the screen, it's CandaceMacPhie.com. And there's accesses to all my books and then the future books that are coming in terms of when they're going to be released and a little blurb on them as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show.
Yes.
Taking the time.
Yes. And thanks for having me. It was
Yeah.
a fun conversation.
All right. And thank you to everyone else who's listening along, and join us next time. Episodes drop on Friday. Please remember there's always more than one way to climb a mountain. To be on our show, find us on social media at The Tell Not Show, or email us at thetellnotshow@gmail.com. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider subscribing and liking. We appreciate all the support. Julia J.K. Allen is an author, editor, and coach, and can be found at hijinksrudder.com.
Kirsha Fox is an author, avid reader, gamer, and mother to four, and you can find her at kirshafox.com. Thanks, and see you next time.